I don't know about y'all, but I feel like I have aged 10 years in the last 10 months. Not just because, despite using a filter, I have to look at myself all of the time for my job, and I can tell how much more tired I look. And people ask me all of the time, how is it that I maintain such an optimistic position, such a determined position in the face of all of the propaganda of the regime, all of the shock and awe campaign a la Steve Bannon that's meant to demoralize us. It's meant to make us despair and to abandon hope. How is it that so much of my content is still really positive? When, like, honestly, I'm not particularly optimistic as a person. I'm idealistic. I want a better world. I want to work for a better world. And I do think that I have been a little naive about the capacity for hate that exists in my fellow Americans, how many people so easily can dehumanize their neighbors and want to enact violence against their neighbors. And I think I've had that level of naivete because, right, like I'm a protected white lady. And so I'm not gonna lie, it has been difficult to see my faith in my fellow human beings rattled as much as it has been. And I do think for me that some of my mindset and some of my outlook right now has a lot to do with my kind of natural stoicism, or maybe it's just like childhood trauma, which is strangely serving me well at this moment in time. And I know I've talked about this before, but my mindset is very much that this is like labor pains, right? This is like the experience of childbirth. I have 4 kids. We're in this and we have to go through it. And it's the same thing when you're laboring. You're like, well, there's no way out of this but to write it all the way to its natural conclusion. I need to have some radical acceptance that this is a thing that I'm going through right now. Just like childbirth, there is no magic button that's going to stop everything or bring everything to a swift conclusion. It is something that you have to go through. It is a natural progression. And I've sort of applied that outlook to what we are experiencing now. Radical acceptance. We are in this. So there's no point in dealing with fantasies, including fantasies catastrophizing about the worst possible outcomes. I want to work with what information I do have, understanding that I am not the only person going through this right now and that so many people before me have gone through so much worse. And there are ways that I have gone through things that are personally worse for me, more traumatic for me, and I have survived those things, and so I can survive this thing too. That very much has been my mindset. I just don't see the utility in giving up in advance. I don't see, like, my goal is for us to win, is for democracy to win, for human rights to win, for compassion and humanity to win, to build a better world. So I don't have the luxury of embracing doomerism. I don't have the luxury of embracing despair. Hope is not a feeling for me, it is a mindset. But that doesn't mean that I don't have anxiety, and it doesn't mean that what we're going through isn't really, really stressful. And I do think there is an element, a significant element of self-discipline at this moment in time. And I have had the benefit of having, like DBT therapy and a lot of skill building in this area where I still have those, anxious, intrusive thoughts. I still have that kind of simmering anxiety. And so, I don't have the luxury of indulging that and marinating in that. So I need to engage all of those skills that I've learned. I have a lot of videos about those skills. Even though, like, I'm not a psychologist, right? This is just my own personal experience. I have to apply those skills right now, even though it's labor, even though it doesn't feel good, even though it's tiring. My own personal perspective is that I don't have the luxury of doing anything else. This is something that we have to do now. And there are days when I really, really freak out, and I have some trusted friends that I can text, and I would encourage you to find those friends. I know I've been a little bit scoldy of some of my fellow creators who tend to take their platforms of hundreds of thousands or millions of followers and kind of ask their followers to manage and massage their emotions. And I try to be really conscious about not doing that to my audience. I want to be authentic, but I'm not asking you to play therapist for me. And I do think sometimes that means that people might think that I don't get stressed out, that I'm not anxious, that this isn't like wearing on me like it is everybody else. And my family could attest I have lots and lots of sleepless nights, and some of my closest friends can attest that sometimes there's me getting way up in my emotion mind and texting them like I'm really freaking out. I'm having a mentee bee right now. I'm having trouble talking myself down. Could you lend me a hand? And the last several days, I made a video late last night where I got a little bit worked up. There was a a man about 12 minutes from my house who was abducted by ICE at the Walmart in Fairview. I guess it's like technically Wood Village, but the video was really heartbreaking, and I was talking about it last night, using it as an opportunity, one, for everybody to be moved. We need to bear witness, right? And we should allow our compassion and our humanity to be activated in those moments, but also to alert people to the fact that PIRC exists. That's the Portland Immigrants' Rights Coalition. They have a hotline, they have a rapid response team. PIRC needs volunteers, and there are similar organizations in Chicago and DC and LA. We need volunteers, but even if you can't volunteer with them, have the hotline saved in your phone. And then I've seen a couple of videos in the last few days of empty vehicles on the side of the road in Oregon where somebody was on their way to work and ICE abducted them and their vehicles just left with the door open and all their possessions inside. Maybe I'll talk about that in the next video because there's been a number of those incidents. And then today, I've done a couple of different community organizing and activist meetings today throughout the day. And I was at one of them, and my city councilor, Candace Avalos, was supposed to be there. And instead, she had a representative who was like, oh, the councilors had an emergency and she can't attend. And I was like, oh, that's a bummer because I really wanted to chat with her. And then I get home from that meeting and it's all over the news that her home has burned, her carport, and part of her home. And the fire has been deemed suspicious and is under investigation. And that really rattled me, right? Obviously, we don't know yet the cause of the fire. So let's not jump the gun. But that really rattled me. I had a hard time. I didn't make any videos all afternoon because I just didn't feel like I could talk on camera without putting my feelings all over everybody. And there's so much that I want to talk about from the trainings that I've been to lately, from the meetings that I've been to. So many resources and skills and so many good people organizing. And I just want to talk about all of it. I was not in a good headspace. And this confluence of these, just it's hard here in Portland. It's hard all over the country, but there's a lot going on in Portland right now. And it can be really easy to get dragged down and feel really powerless. There are a lot of right-wing influencers who have descended on our city who are trying to cause problems. ICE itself is being excessively brutal, and as a retaliatory measure for the city not taking the bait and not rioting, they have really escalated ICE raids all over Portland and the suburbs. And it can be really tempting to feel powerless, to feel hopeless, and feel like your contributions don't matter. Like we're not going to be able to stop this terrible roll of cruelty and awfulness and oppression. So earlier today, I went to a meeting with Protect Oregon. And I took tons of notes, and I'll talk about that in a moment here in my next video, probably. But one of the things that the speaker said was we should look for ways to collectivize our acts. What are we doing now? And how do we increase our power by involving our friends and neighbors? And that line really reminded me of something that I read last night in From Dictatorship to Democracy. So I just want to read a little bit of it here to you. In this section, Gene Sharp talks about the hard truths that we have to face in order to topple a dictatorship and reinstitute a democracy. He talks about the need for the oppressed population to build their determination, self-confidence, and resistance skills. That we've got to strengthen the independent social groups of the people who are oppressed by the regime, and that we have to build a powerful resistance force from those social groups. And that we have to develop a wise, strategic plan for liberation and then implement it skillfully. But this is the part that I wanted to really drive home here. A liberation struggle is a time of self-reliance and internal strengthening of the struggle group. That's us, y'all. The pro-democracy resistance, that's the struggle group in the US right now, even though we are a majority. As Charles Stewart Parnell called out during the Irish rent strike of 1879 and 1880, it is no use relying on the government. You must rely upon your own determination. Help yourselves by standing together. Strengthen those amongst yourselves who are weak. Band yourselves together. Organize yourselves. Sharp goes on to say, against a strong, self-reliant force given wise strategy, disciplined and courageous action, and genuine strength, the dictatorship will eventually crumble. I guess for me, in those moments when I'm down and stressed and struggling, it's not always up to me to have to bolster myself. It's good to remind ourselves that we get to save us, right? But also we can draw strength from the words and the truths of others.